Hello and welcome to Native Yoga Center. My name is Todd McLaughlin, and today I want to point out how to practice Setu Bandhasana. So, in Ashtanga Yoga, there's a posture called Setu Bandhasana. In other methods of yoga, the pose Setu Bandhasana is bridge pose. So, bridge pose is where we bridge or lift our hips up, feet on floor, pressure on shoulders. And so, in a lot of styles of yoga, that is Setu Bandhasana, supported bridge, or commonly known as bridge pose. Well, in Ashtanga Yoga, Ashtanga Primary Series, that's a different story. And the Ashtanga version of Setu Bandhasana is a very intense posture because it requires that we take our neck into a state of full extension, which means dropping it all the way back, putting our head on the floor, and lifting our body weight up and putting all of the pressure on the head. And so Setu Bandhasana is a posture that I personally enjoyed practicing for many, many years. I started to get older, right? And got a lot of pain when I would practice Setu Bandhasana. I personally don't practice the full Ashtanga style Setu Bandhasana anymore. And so I do it in a way that I modify it. And that's what I want to show you. If you love Setu Bandhasana and you're looking for a video to explain how to do the intricacies of the full position, this video will offer you different type of tips and tricks. In this video I'm showing you, I want to show you how to modify the pose. And I want you to really take good care of your neck. Make sure you actually feel better after practice. If you ever do yoga practice, and then the rest of the day you can't turn your head side to side, you're driving your car or whatever you do, you're riding your bike, you're trying to look over your shoulder and you can't turn your head, that's usually a good sign that maybe you're doing something wrong, right? And so I know there's this idea of just push through the pain. Sometimes in the world of exercise and yoga, no pain, no gain, you got to go for it. But the reality is that all of us are dealing with different spinal conditioning. All of us have different levels of inflammation in the body. All of us have different level of health in relation to the disc space in between each of the vertebrae. So the Setu Bandhasana position is where we take the feet into what's called dorsiflex. So dorsiflex is when you turn your foot backward, as opposed to plantar flex, which is point. Dorsiflex is with your foot back. And when we dorsiflex, we put the heels together. You take your feet, you dorsiflex, you turn them out. So in other words, you're externally rotating your thighs and your hips. And there's a slight, you start off with your feet in front and you bend your knees just enough to the point that you're able to get the pinky toe edge of your feet to touch down to the floor. So a lot of times what people will do is they bend their knees a whole bunch to be able to get the pinky toes to touch. But ideally, we keep more of a moderate knee bend. The reason for this is that when you get really deep into the pose later on, you're going to be, if you try to straighten your legs in the posture, that's going to put so much pressure up on your head that it is difficult to actually get the legs straight. So that's why if you minimize the amount of bend that you set the pose up with, that then will ensure that when you try for the straight leg variation, you won't be bending your back like crazy, right? So that's part of the strategy. So then to keep it really simple, it's just setting up the legs into the external rotation position. Now, the next thing to do is to put the elbows on the floor. Now, you can practice Setu Bandhasana keeping your head up, right? Because if you've had an injury, like there's so many different injuries I could label and list, such as maybe you had whiplash injury, maybe you have herniations in your cervical vertebra, maybe you've had neck compression issues and you've had surgery where they've put rods in your neck, where they've done a fusion surgery. There's a whole host of different reasons why you might want to just do very gentle neck movement and not put full weight onto your head, including headstand. So in Setu Bandhasana, the first thing to really just investigate is how comfortable is my neck going back into full extension. So this part here feels totally comfortable for me personally. And you have to figure out for yourself, like, how deep can you go? If you take your head back to here and you start getting pain, I want you to keep your head here. One thing you can do is you can manipulate your chest and shoulder. You can still keep your chin down, and you can still work on manipulating your chest and shoulders. So one strategy for Setu Bandhasana could actually be keeping your chin in and pushing your chest up and just getting the shoulder stretch. If you have the ability to drop your head back, you can drop your head back. If that feels good, the next stage in the setup is to take the elbows and start to walk them down. And I'm going to attempt to lightly land my head on the ground. I'm going to see if I can move my arms and bring them across the shoulders and chest. And this is as far as I take the Setu Bandhasana nowadays. And the reason that I'm pointing this out is that, like, now that type of pressure on the head, I don't have any pain in my neck when I finish practicing the pose. And again, I mean, I know there's debates amongst Ashtanga yogis, like, well, you need to be doing the pose to the full level, and that is what will enable you to go to the next pose. But I'm coming at this from the angle of, like, we got to look at this realistically. And we are working with the masses. We are working with lots of people, not just the most elite athletes available. We are working with people that are coming in with neck injuries, back injuries, shoulder injuries, knee injuries, all sorts of things. So this is why I've been here teaching in this location for the last 18 years. I've learned through working with so many people that we do have to make it appropriate, because if you hurt them, if you get hurt, you don't want to do yoga anymore. So the main thing is, how can we figure out how to do this in a way that it actually feels good? Now, another strategy, there's a whole bunch of different things you can use. And in the realm of therapeutic yoga, I like to take Ashtanga Yoga into the therapeutic realm. Therapeutic just meaning that we give support where needed, and the emphasis is on rehabilitation if necessary. This is another way that we could potentially practice Setu Bandhasana. I'm using a yoga wheel. I have my head supported. I don't have to use my neck muscles, and I can just get a nice little bend curve in my back and be able to work this sort of shape that Setu Bandhasana proposes. And so this is one option. This is obviously a yoga wheel, which I recommend getting. Dharma Mitra, the Dharma Yoga wheel is a good one if you're looking for a good one. This is a foam roller. This is also another great technique that you can use. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to lay down. This is my Setu Bandhasana on the foam roller. I have a little bit of support under my head, and I have my knees open, so I'm still working the Setu Bandhasana positioning of the legs, but I've created a little bit of a prop under my neck. What I can do is start to see if I can wedge the foam roller underneath, and my head and neck feel great here. I'm still getting the chest opening, and in theory, this is an excellent way to practice the Setu Bandhasana. Another option, if you don't have a fancy, I wouldn't call this fancy, I don't know, you could probably pick this up pretty cheap anywhere, is to take a blanket. I'm sure you have a blanket somewhere in your house, and you just take it and you roll it up, and I'm going to use the same thing, same idea. And this way you're still practicing Ashtanga Yoga, in my opinion. If you want to have debate, I'm happy to debate with you. But I'm doing it in a way that I'm supporting what's going on with herniations in the thoracic spine. And sometimes if you have herniations down here in the lower spine, you think, well, doesn't that mean I can put full pressure on my neck and head? Well, sometimes, obviously, because it's so closely connected, you can still aggravate that area that's a little bit lower, like in the thoracic. So these are a couple of different ways that you can practice the Setu Bandhasana. Another form that kind of takes a similar shape, and if you're having a hard time getting down on the floor, this is really changing the pattern, but I'm going to still practice the Setu Bandhasana legs here. And I'm just going to take my hands on the floor behind and press the chest forward and lift the chin. And really focus on expanding the chest and shoulders. So pectoralis major is opening up. I'm able to work the lines of the arms like the biceps brachii by having, this is wrist flexion, wrist extension. By taking wrist extension, we're able to open up the musculature in your forearms and wrists, so your wrist flexor muscles. And so with that being said, we can still get a nice stretch here on the wrist, the shoulders, and we're still practicing Setu Bandhasana. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Leave a comment where you're watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check us out, nativeyogacenter.com. From there, you're going to find links to my podcast, Native Yoga Toddcast, which I release every single Friday. And also, we have lots of online resources that you can study and practice with us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, happy yoga. Take good care of yourself. Don't be afraid to modify your positions. If you encounter a yoga teacher that doesn't let you modify, practice at home, practice so that you're safe and sound, and seek out a teacher that listens to what your needs are. It's really important. All right, have a great day. Namaste.